Hello everyone, and welcome back to the next video in the series. This video and the others that we had, a couple before this and also a couple that come after this, our focus in these videos is how to convert between percentage, fractions and decimals. In the previous video I talked about conversions between fractions and decimals, and the topic for this video is going between from percent to fraction and from fraction to percent. Okay, we start with the manner in which we can go from percent to fractions. And the question of how we do that, you basically divide by 100. Percent means out of 100. And because you want to get a fraction, we do the division using the fraction notation. As an example of this, 19% means 19 out of 100, 19 hundredths, and therefore we write it down as 19 over 100. You notice that the division by 100 is written using the fraction notation, and again the reason is because we want to get a fraction. Now if I wanted to get a decimal, then I would take the decimal and move it back over 2 digits, but if I want to get a fraction, then I divide by 100 like this. Okay, problem number 2, 2% means 2 hundredths, 2 out of 100. And so we get 2 over 100. Now in some cases you might be able to reduce the fraction that you get. So for 2 hundredths, I'm going to show you the reduction over here. Just as a quick reminder, we divide the top and the bottom by 2. 2 into 2 goes once, and 2 into 100 goes 50 times. And so we end up with 1/50th. And you notice that it does again make sense. 2 out of 100 is the same as 1 out of 50. Problem 3, we have 345%. Now for these ones, it's possible to put 345 over 100 and then change the improper fraction to a mixed number. But there is a shortcut. If you have more than 2 digits, you can put, you can only keep the rightmost 245, keep those ones, and only those ones will go over 100. The rest will go on the side. So here we end up with 3 and 45 hundredths. Okay, now if you choose to do this as 345 hundredths, then you will do extra work. Now again, also keep in mind that you might be able to reduce the fraction that comes up. So in this case, we can divide the top and the bottom by 5, and we end up with 9 over 20. So this is equal to 3 and 9/20ths. Again, the alternative of writing 345% as 345 over 100, it does work, but you'll do extra work. Now in this case, you will have to divide 345 by 100, and again, I'll let you try that long division. But you'll find that 3 will come out as the whole part, and then you will have 45 as your remainder. You get 45 hundredths, which reduces to 9 over 20. Problem number 4. Now we have 3/4%. And as I mentioned in the previous video, you can make sense of what's written as 3/4 of 1%. So imagine you find 1% of something. You divide it into 100 parts, take 1 part. Imagine how small it is. And then find 3/4 of that. So this is 3/4 of 1%. In order to change this to a fraction, we have to divide by 100. Now there is a shortcut. On the right side, I've written 3/4 and then percent. And of course, percent means that you divide by 100. So this becomes 3/4 divided by 100. Division by 100 can be changed into multiplication by 1 over 100. And in the end, we'll end up with 3 over 400. So you see the effect of applying the percentage is to add 2 zeros to the denominator. We get 3 over 400. And that's a good shortcut to know. Now, having said that, I would not go all the way to the end. I would jump to here in case the top number here happens to be even, because then I can reduce it with 100. So if I see 3/4%, I would jump down to 3/400. But if I had, let's say, 4/3%, then I would put down 4/3 times 1/100 and reduce the 4 and the 3, sorry, the 4 and the 100. Okay, so we end up with 3/400. Problem 5, in case you have a mixed number, before you add 2 zeros to the denominator, this is important. Please make sure that you change your fraction to an improper fraction. So in this case, we get 5 times 2, 10, plus 1, 11. And this becomes 11/5%. And now I can add 2 zeros to the denominator as a shortcut and get 11/500. Now this one begins with a decimal and then percentage, 0.7%. And of course we want to end up with a fraction, which means we have to do two things. One is to convert the decimal to a fraction, and the second is to deal with the percent, which means divide by 100. And we can do this in any order. What's good about this is that it doesn't really matter much which order you choose. They will both work pretty quickly. So if I convert my decimal to a fraction first, I haven't touched the percent yet, I get 7/10. Now I deal with the percent by adding 2 zeros to the denominator, and I get 7/1000. The alternative approach would be to deal with the percent first, divide by 100, but do that with division of decimals. So decimal point moves back over 2 digits. And we get 0.007, which is 7/1000. And now we can write it down as a fraction. You can see both of them are as efficient. Again, so long as you take the shortcut that I told you about here, that if you have a fraction followed by percent, you can add 2 zeros to the denominator of that fraction. All right, now going the other way, given a fraction, how do we convert that to a percent? And the answer is we do the opposite. Rather than divide by 100 and then ignore the percent or drop it, we multiply by 100 and attach the percent to the end. Problem 1 3/5 becomes 3/5 times 100%. And now we can reduce the 5 and 100. I'll show that over here. We can divide both 5 and 100 by 5. And so we get 5 into 5 one time, 5 into 100 20 times. Now we multiply 3 by 20 to get 60, and division by 1 is not going to change anything, so we just put down 60%. Problem number 2. Now we have 4/15. Now the difference between this one and problem 1 is that with problem 1, 5 and 100 reduced in such a way that 5 down here became 1, as you can see. But with 15, that won't happen. So the question now is, how do we work this out? Well, we still have to multiply by 100%, but then after we reduce, we'll find that we'll end up with a value that's not 1 down here. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 5 goes into 100 20 times. We continue with the multiplication. 4 times 20 is 80, but we have to keep division by 3. So the next step is to write down 80/3%. And because 80/3 is an improper fraction, it's nice to convert that into a mixed number. I let you do the long division and you get 26 2/3%. You notice how much easier it is to understand how much we are talking about with the mixed notation compared to the improper fraction. This one is 26% and an additional 2/3%. Okay, so we end up with 80/3%, and then we change that to 26 2/3%. Okay everyone, thank you very much for watching this video. In the next one, I will take up the topic of going from percentage to decimals and vice versa. Take care everyone, and I will be gone in 3, 2, and 1.